Okay, people. So I got one today from Mr. Ballin. Mr. Ballin used to be a Navy SEAL in the U.S. Navy. He was stationed, I believe, in Norfolk, Virginia during his tenure in the U.S. Navy. He has a lot of great stories. He's a legendary YouTuber. I remember when he was just starting out, and he only had like a few thousand subscribers. Now this guy is like on TV shows. He has merch. You know, this guy has millions of followers, millions. He's basically succeeded at the game of being a veteran and doing YouTube from the U.S. military. So he's a great inspiration for a lot of YouTubers, I think. Mr. Ballin is definitely one of the greatest. So we are going to do a video of Mr. Ballin today, and I believe he's talking about a hiker in China who discovered a portal. So this should be pretty interesting. There's still a lot of secrets being discovered around the world, and a lot of those places would definitely be China, or at least maybe we don't know about it. The government could be covering it up from us. But here we have a story of an account of a person who has lived in China, and he discovered a portal on his hike. So Mr. Ballin is one of the best when it comes to storytelling. So let's get into it, and yeah, let's see what he has to say about this story. Let's do it.
Please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story.
All right, guys, so there we go, Mr. Ballin's intro. Normally, I don't play the intro for a lot of YouTubers that I follow, but Mr. Ballin definitely needs to be known about, so that was all his handles right there and what the story's about. So let's get into it.
On the morning of June 18th, 2016, a 45-year-old hiker named Zhang Shenpeng stood at the entrance to the famous Maclehose Wilderness Trail in southern China. He reached into his backpack, pulled out his phone, aimed it at the trail, and took a photo. Now, this trail was very beautiful, which is why he was taking a photo of it, but it also had a reputation for being a very dangerous trail. It was located in an area called the Saikung Peninsula, and the trail itself was about 100 kilometers long, or 62 miles, and it went through forests and mountains and streams.
You have to give Mr. Ballin credit for getting real footage for these trails. He's a good storyteller. He's already legendary, but to actually give us footage, to give us a better idea mentally where this hiker is astounding. It's actually pretty cool.
And the weather along this trail was very unpredictable, with sudden storms rolling in and just wreaking havoc. But Zhang was feeling very confident about this hike because he himself was an experienced hiker. While he maybe hadn't done this particular trail, he had hiked similar trails, and also the weather appeared to be holding up. However, before Zhang could even take a step onto this trail, the sky suddenly turned this dark greenish hue, and there was a loud thunderclap. Basically, instantly, there was this massive storm overhead. Zhang couldn't believe it. He just stood there watching as this unbelievable storm rolled in, wondering what he should do. Again, he had not prepared for a storm. It was supposed to be nice out. But as he's kind of weighing whether or not he should just turn around and head back home because it was now too dangerous, the sky, just as suddenly as this all began, cleared. And it was suddenly beautiful and bright out, and the storm was gone. Now, at first, Zhang was not entirely convinced that the storm was now just magically gone, and so for a few minutes, he just stood there waiting in case it came back. But it didn't. The sky remained beautiful and clear, and so eventually, Zhang posted that photo he had taken of the trail, and he captioned it with something to the effect of, very strange weather out here, but I'm continuing my hike. And then after posting the photo, he put his phone away and began walking down the Maclehose Trail. At first, as Zhang headed off into the forest, he made good time. It was warm out, but not too hot, and his pack was fairly light, and also the views were just stunning. Every time he came to a rise on the trail, he could look out and see the waves of the South China Sea, and the air was so clear and crisp. It was a really relaxing and beautiful place to be. Certainly a big change from what he was used to, which was the noise and crowds of the city. And so Zhang just continued on his hike, stopping periodically to take more photos. But after about an hour of this hike, when things were still going really well, Zhang reached this fairly steep incline on the trail, and he began walking up it. There had been past inclines on the trail, and he had been fine. But as he began maneuvering up this particular incline, he began to feel kind of woozy. In fact, more specifically, he began to feel like the air all around him was getting really hot, like somebody was turning up the temperature all around him. And so Zhang, he stopped as he was making his way up this incline to kind of catch his breath. But as he did that, the heat just got worse and worse. He became delirious. And as he was almost towards the top of this hill, it was like he just couldn't go any further. And the world began to spin all around him. And before long, he was tumbling to the ground and blacking out. The next thing Zhang became aware of was the feeling of grass pressed up against his cheek. He was laying on the trail. So he kind of opened his eyes, and he sat up for a second. He was very disoriented. He didn't know how long he had been out for. He figured it was only a couple of minutes. But as he kind of got his bearings, the first thing he noticed is the sky was now totally dark. And when he had passed out, it was broad daylight. And so he's thinking, that can't possibly be true. I can't have been here for hours. That's not possible. And so he began to think to himself like, oh, I guess another storm has rolled in. That's why the sky is so dark. It's not nighttime. But then when he reached into his bag and pulled out his phone and saw the time and saw it was 8 o'clock at night, he realized there was no storm. It really is nighttime. He had been unconscious on this trail for apparently like 12 hours. And so as Zhang just stared at his...
Oh, that's creepy. So he literally was hiking out somewhere in South China, and this trail, and I guess he got dizzy from a storm that came, and he passes out, and I guess he wakes up 12 hours later in like pitch black, like midnight. Like, that's crazy.
His phone in disbelief, his phone began to ring, and it was his wife. And so Zhang's thinking, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to be home right now. My wife is definitely worried about me. And so pretty quickly he kind of composed himself, even though, again, he has no idea what's happening here. And he answers the call, and as cheerful as he could, he told his wife that everything was fine. He was just running late and he would be home soon. And so she said, okay. And then after Zhang hung up with her, he put his phone back in his backpack and pulled out a flashlight. And then he stood up and kind of checked himself over for cuts and scrapes and bruises. He had no idea what condition he was in here. But after checking himself over, he seemed okay. I mean, he was still very disoriented and confused, but physically he was okay. And then, again, even though he doesn't understand what's happening here, he's just thinking, okay, I gotta turn around, get back to the car, and get home as quickly as possible. And so he slung his backpack, and with his flashlight out in front of him, he just started hoofing it back down the trail.
Like how is Mr. Ballin getting video of this trail? Like that's insane. This is what the trail looked like. At least it wasn't like thick brush. It looks like it was just kind of like thin trees. Stems. It doesn't look that. I think thick brush is what you really want to worry about being out in the forest or woods.
In the direction of his car. Now, as Zhang walked along, he was feeling very unsettled, but he kept telling himself that, independent of whatever's happened here, he was going to be home soon and everything was going to be fine. However, not long into his return trip towards his car, he began to get this unbelievably bad feeling, like something was just totally wrong here. And as he began having this feeling, he suddenly took stock of the fact that the forest he was in, which had been so alive with life and sound and everything, was now completely silent. No insects, no animals. The stream nearby was making no sound. It was like he was in a void. And it was so eerie. And he stopped and just listened. And it was like the whole world was on mute. And so Zhang, who now is starting to feel scared, just began scanning his flashlight all around him, not even sure what he was looking for. But as he did, he had another realization. Suddenly the area he was in did not look familiar at all. I mean, he had only walked maybe several paces away from where he had just fallen to the trail and passed out. But now as he looked around, it was like he was in a totally different section of the forest. I mean, he looked back where he had fallen, and even in the grass where he would have been, it was untouched. There was no impression on the ground.
He might have been like maybe in a dream state, possibly. Like it's possible that, or maybe maybe like he was under some sort of mind control and he thought like he was in that place. It could have just been like a hallucination. He could have just been hallucinating. Now, what caused that hallucination? That's the question.
From where he would have been laying for 12 hours, like he'd been transported somewhere else without knowing it. Now, when Zhang spoke to his wife on the phone, he was very careful not to alarm her, even though he had sort of a growing sense of panic inside of him. But now, the whole situation was sort of out of hand. He really didn't understand what was happening, and he knew he needed help. And so he reached into his backpack to pull out his phone to call for help, except when he reached into his bag, there was nothing there. His phone was gone, his supplies were gone, the bag was totally empty, even though literally minutes before it had been full. Like there was no way he just randomly lost this stuff.
Dude, that's like a whole abduction, like happening in like live, like live time. Like this guy is losing stuff as he's awake. Like that's crazy.
Had been there, and now it was gone. And so Zhang desperately looked on the ground with his flashlight, and he walked back in the direction where he believed he had fallen, even though it didn't look like the same place. He's looking all over the place, like, maybe he did drop his stuff, but he didn't. It was just gone. And so now, really feeling scared, Zhang just completely lost his composure and began screaming at the top of his lungs for help. But he heard nothing in response, just silence. And then not long after that, Zhang's head began to feel heavy again, and then he sank to the ground, put his head in the dirt, and he closed his eyes.
Wow.
Hey guys, I have an incredible announcement. Something I know is going to absolutely make your day. Something many of you may have waited years for me to say again. Beginning the first full week in the new year, so the week of January 5th, I am going to go from one measly upload on this channel a week to 2, 3, even 4 uploads a week. You heard that right. We're going back to 2, 3, even 4 times a week. You guys have been telling me that you want me to release more videos, and well, I and our whole team have been listening. So as always, make sure your notifications are on so you don't miss any of these amazing extra weekly uploads. It will not replace what you're already getting. This is all in addition to. It's going to be great. See you guys soon. When Zhang woke up, it was bright out, and he also was now magically back at the original spot where he had passed out on that steep incline. And the first thing he did as soon as he came to is he reached into his bag, hoping that his phone and other supplies would have just materialized by now. But no, when he reached inside the bag, it was still empty. And so on the one hand, Zhang still is like, what is going on here? I don't understand what's happening. And then on the other, he was also becoming acutely aware that because he doesn't have his phone, he can't call for help. Like he's stuck out here. And so he's wondering, like, what is he going to do here? And then it dawns on him that, it's been at least several hours since he last spoke to his wife, and she was expecting him home the night before. And so by now, certainly, because he hasn't come home, she must have called the police. And so maybe there was already a search party out here looking for him. And so suddenly feeling kind of hopeful that that was actually happening, Zhang, despite his confusion and disorientation here, just scooped up his backpack, put it on, and began walking down the trail back in the direction towards his car.
That probably was the smartest thing he could have did. I mean, like, literally, like, bro literally just went through, like, how many hallucinations, supposedly lost, like, over 12 hours of time, was, just missing things and whatever. And, like, bro, the first thing you should have did as soon as that started seeming unfamiliar, he should have just ran back to his car. I mean, that probably, you could have called or texted on your way. You didn't need to, like, go through all that experience. What was he waiting for?
And as he walked, Zhang periodically would call out, hoping that, again, some searchers or...
And why are you calling out after experiencing something like that? Like, that is something that is obviously... it's not normal. It's not normal. For you to be going through an environment that's changing directly in front of you, and, like, you're screaming, bro, you should just be hightailing it. Just literally hightailing it. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he had a weapon on him and he didn't, like, feel scared or nervous or something like that. But still,
Other hikers were nearby who would hear him and come to his aid. But after hiking for over an hour, he still had not reached his car. The forest was still eerily silent, like everything was silent. He hadn't seen or heard anybody else. I mean, he's totally alone here. And so Zhang started to wonder if maybe his best bet was not to try to hike out of here, but instead to just stay put and wait for, hopefully, the search party, if there was one out there, to come find him, or maybe some other hiker to come find him. However, as he was considering this, he looked up ahead where the trail kind of turned, and he saw there was this pond, a pond he had not seen on the way in, but nonetheless, there was a pond basically right over there. And from his perspective, he could see kind of through the trees on the other side of the pond appeared to be a person. Zhang suddenly felt this enormous sense of relief.
I don't know. That could go two ways. If it's just like a person and like all that weird stuff is happening, I'm surprised he just wasn't on guard. I mean, like, I guess just seeing another human being in like the environment's like literally like shape shifting in front of you. I mean, like, I guess you'll just be happy to see a human being, but you know. I don't know. Let's continue.
Here was the person who was going to help him and get him out of here. And so Zhang began walking towards this person, and as he did, he cupped his hands and he called out a hello to get this person's attention. Now, when Zhang did this, he believed this person would either, one, hear him, turn around and see what Zhang wanted, or two, they wouldn't hear him, and they would just continue to stand there with their back to him.
Oh, so okay, so the human figure had his back facing him. Oh, this is like something out of a comic book, man. What is this?
But neither of those things happened. When Zhang called out this very hearty hello, this person just instantly began sprinting away from Zhang without even turning to look at him. They just began taking off into the trees.
No.
And Zhang, he's thinking like this is a crisis for him.
No, that was that was a humanoid figure trying to show him this is what you need to be doing. Like, I ran, why don't you run? Can't you run too? That's crazy.
He has no idea what's happening here. This is the first person he's seen. He needs them. And so instinctively, Zhang just took off running after them, calling out the whole time, trying to reassure them that he was not a threat. He didn't mean to scare them. He needs their help. And so he gets to the pond. He runs around the perimeter. He can still see this person running off into the woods. And Zhang, like...
Wait. So he literally followed this figure. If you just had that weird stuff happen to you in your environment, right? And things are disappearing on you and reappearing and whatever the case may be, and night's turning day, day's turning night, and then you see this humanoid with whatever figure with his back facing you, and then you scream at it, and then it takes off, and then you chase after it? Like, that's... Why? It's probably just trying to lure you into something else. You should just run back to your car. That's all you have to do. Run back to your car. Maybe call the police, give a report if it wasn't, if it was a little bit too crazy on you. Something like go to the hospital, give a report, something like you're going to chase deeper into the woods. You know what this sounds like? This sounds like Skinwalker territory. This is exactly what this sounds like.
He's so exhausted from the lack of water and food. He's not feeling his best, but somehow through adrenaline alone, he starts gaining on this person. And eventually he closes the distance on this person as they're weaving through the trees. And suddenly this person just stops.
You know what? This actually might be our first account of witnessing what happens when you chase down a skinwalker. And like, we don't even know it. Like, Mr. Ballin probably doesn't even realize it. Like, because all the skinwalker accounts kind of sounds similar to this. Like, literally, just like what he's saying, like how this guy is reporting how this started, how this all happened. And he chased it. I've never heard a story where they chased the skinwalker and caught it. So let's see how this turns out.
And they don't turn around to look at Zhang. They just stop in the middle of the woods. And Zhang, he almost barrels into them because he had been running so quickly. And he just stops. And he's staring at the back of this person who still has not turned around to look at him at any point. And Zhang says to them, "Please, I need your help." And Zhang, he's panting, he's totally out of breath. And this person who's been running at top speed the whole time, they're not out of breath. They're not even moving. They're stationary, just with their back to Zhang. And suddenly, as Zhang is staring at this person, realizing that something feels off here, the person begins to turn around to look at him. And as they do, Zhang suddenly feels this incredible sense of dread. Like he chased this person down, he needs their help, but now that they're turning around to face him, something feels wrong, and he doesn't want to see him. Something's off here.
Bro, this is like some Skinwalker stuff, bro. This is insane.
And then the person fully turns around and looks at Zhang, and Zhang is suddenly so terrified of what he sees, he holds his breath and just stays there frozen to the spot, staring. He can't believe what he's looking at. This was not a person. This was some sort of shadowy figure with no face, and it was now staring directly at Zhang. And Zhang, again, he's so scared he can't move. He's holding his breath. He's just looking right back at them. And then suddenly this figure takes an aggressive step toward Zhang. And then another and another until suddenly they're inches away from Zhang. And Zhang is so terrified, he just closes his eyes, expecting to die at any second. And then when he opens his eyes, the figure's just gone. For about 5 minutes, Zhang just stood there, shaking in utter disbelief of what he had just experienced. I mean, this whole thing had been terrifying, but this specific interaction with this shadow figure was horrifying, and he had no idea how to process it. But at the same time, after a few minutes, Zhang's thinking to himself, I don't want to stay around here to try to figure out what's going on.
Wait. He just got that thought, bro. That thought just crossed your mind. like maybe I don't want to stay around here. Well, maybe I should go. Maybe I should just run back to my car and go home. And I just had the sky turn pitch black and 12 hours passed on my clock. And you're telling me he chased an individual that had no face, stared at it, and then after he thought he almost died, he said, "Hey, you know what? Maybe I should go back home." Bro, I think it had more control over him than just hallucinations. It had something else over him as well, too. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
And experience things that he cannot understand. So he doesn't even know what's real and what's not anymore. And so as he's looking at the cemetery, he told himself, this has got to be some hallucination. This can't be here. But after walking down the hill and entering the cemetery, he reached out and touched the headstones, and they were very real. This cemetery absolutely, for right now anyways, was real and right in front of him. And as he looked at the dates on these headstones, he could tell this cemetery was at least 200 years old. And so as Zhang is taking in this new information,
Okay, so he followed what seemed like a skinwalker, right? Into some sort of other world. That's what it seems like. And, now I see why he called it the hiker finding a portal. So he finds a 200-year-old cemetery. Like, yeah, this is insane. Yeah. Come to find out, like, skinwalkers are just like co-workers of like the Grim Reaper or something like that.
He looks up and he sees a couple hundred meters away from him is a group of what appears to be people clustered around a grave. And for a moment, Zhang feels this unbelievable sense of relief. Here we go. There's some people here. They're visiting their relatives. They can help me. But before Zhang ran over there and asked for their help, he watched one of them sort of turn their bodies, and they looked back at Zhang. And instantly, Zhang's body was overcome with terror once again. Because this person was not a person. This was a faceless, dark figure, just like the one he had encountered near the pond. And there was this horrible sense that this thing was looking right at him, and so horrified.
He might have stumbled on something connected to skinwalkers. I really think that. Because, like if you hear accounts of skinwalkers, people say they saw something like a human that wasn't a human, or it made noises, or or yells like a human, but like it didn't have a face, or it didn't have, its eyes were completely black or something like that. It's always like some shape-shifting situation. And this sounds just like that, except for this is the first time I've heard of what sounds like a skinwalker situation, but like the person is actually involved in it. Like he didn't run. This is the first person who did not run. That's basically what I'm getting at.
Zhang just turned and ran away. That night, Zhang found himself inexplicably back at that small pond. Didn't even know how he got there, but at this point, he wasn't questioning anything because he didn't understand any of this. And as he was next to this pond, at some point, he had that heaviness come over him, and before long, he was on the ground, closing his eyes. However, this time, as he sort of slept or became unconscious, he entered into this sort of dream state where he became aware that there were whispers all around him. Somebody or something was trying to communicate with him, and at first he couldn't tell what it was. But then he realized it was like the earth was talking to him. It was like the rocks and the nearby water were literally speaking to him. And for some reason, this felt sort of comforting, even though, again, he has no idea what to make of this. And then when Zhang...
Bro sounded like he was going through like a legit psyop. He said it sounded like noises were coming from the rocks, from the trees, from the earth. Right. Like, I don't know, maybe something was being tested on him to see like how the human body reacts to like paranoia. You know, it's very possible.
Zhang woke up again. It was bright out, and all of a sudden Zhang was aware that the forest was alive again. There were sounds coming from everywhere, animals, insects, there was water sounds. It was like things were back to normal. And Zhang, he also had this incredible clear-headedness that he hadn't had for the past several days. It really was like things had gone back to normal. And so Zhang stood up, and he heard the sound of running water nearby, and he followed it to a stream. And so he decided he would just follow this stream right on out of the MacLehose Trail. Like this was going to be the way he would get out of here. But after walking for hours and hours along the stream, he still had not found his way out.
Hours.
The sun was now directly overhead, beaming down on him. He was so hot, he was tired, he was moving slower and slower. His optimism was beginning to fade. And then he looked up, and just up ahead, he saw something that destroyed any of the optimism he had left. Because right up ahead were 3 more shadow figures with their back to him. It was like they were blocking his way towards freedom. And so as Zhang tensed up and prepared to turn and run back deeper into this trail that he was...
Now, I'm just assuming, right? So maybe it's possible, like, he ran into, like, a cult, you know? And maybe they, like, practice witchcraft, you know, because everything this sounds like it just went from like Skinwalker to like ritual, like real quick. It just went from like Skinwalker to like alien to like cult, and maybe it's all connected. Who knows? I mean, maybe all this is just like witchcraft.
Trying to escape, one of these shadow figures turned and they looked directly at Zhang, and when they did, everything changed. Because Zhang instantly realized this was no shadow figure. This was a real person. They had a face, and they were calling out to him saying, "Hey, do you need any help?" And Zhang was so relieved, so happy. He couldn't even say anything back. He just fell to his knees and wept tears of joy. He was finally saved. It would turn out Zhang's wife had called the police on that first night when Zhang didn't come home. And so the whole time Zhang was out in the woods over these several days, there was actually a massive search party out there looking for him. However, none of the searchers claimed to have seen or heard Zhang at any point, and Zhang did not see or hear any of the searchers. Those people at the end who finally rescued him were just random hikers that happened to see him. But somehow, despite the fact that Zhang really could not have gone very far from his car, I mean, he really didn't cover a huge distance on this trail when this whole experience began, despite that, the searchers never heard or saw Zhang at any point, and Zhang obviously never heard or saw any of them. So they're basically in the exact same area, looking for each other, but nobody sees each other. After being discovered by those 3 real people on MacLehose Trail, Zhang was taken to a hospital where he was examined, and it was determined there was nothing physically wrong with him, other than he had not had much to eat or drink in several days. In fact...
Wait, they said several days? I don't even think his like account he was talking about lasted like several days, you know. But the doctor said that he hasn't eaten or drinking in several days. He must have been really dehydrated, you know. So I'm wondering, like, if those real hikers never found him or maybe never came across him, would he have just like died in the forest? And then would they have ever discovered his body? Because it sounds like the people who did the search for him, the large search that went on for him, they didn't find him, you know. So would they have ever found him if he would have just like died out there, you know? And maybe there's a way, like, I don't know, skinwalkers and aliens and cults can like transcend dimensions or something like that. Maybe they figured that way out. Maybe, I don't know.
The official explanation for what happened to Zhang was just that he was really dehydrated. However, Zhang didn't buy that explanation. And when Zhang left the hospital and got back home, he immediately began digging into the history of the MacLehose Trail. And he would quickly discover that he was not the first person to have a totally wild, bizarre, borderline paranormal experience out on that trail. It would turn out the MacLehose Trail cuts across a geographic line called the Sai Kung Barrier. This is an area of the Sai Kung Peninsula that is generally considered to be a portal to other dimensions. And there have been enough people to have otherworldly experiences out on this trail that loosely match what Zhang claims to have seen and experienced, that they dubbed the area this trail is in as the Bermuda Triangle of South China. And adding even more intrigue to this area is the fact that several other very experienced hikers have gone missing along this trail, and they've had huge search parties sent out for them.
Oh, wow.
But they were never found. Jean
Wow.
would eventually share his story of what happened to him out on the trail in a 3,500-word essay that he...
Wow. So other people have gone missing on that trail, and they probably were caught up in the same situation. That's crazy. They called it the Bermuda Triangle. Or it's like the Bermuda Triangle. I'm not saying it is, but still, that's insane. You know, because I think Bermuda Triangle, it has to involve water, right? But no, they consider this area of forest like the Bermuda Triangle in South China. Like, that's crazy.
Posted on social media. He and many others believe that when he first fell and collapsed on the trail, that he actually fell through the Sai Kung barrier and entered another dimension. That for those days that he was wandering around having no idea what was happening to him, that he wasn't really in this dimension anymore. He was somewhere else. Zhang believed the only reason he was able to escape this other dimension was because on his final night in this other place, he began to hear the sounds of the rocks and the water whispering to him. He said the only reason he was able to hear that was because he had sort of accepted his fate, that here he was in this totally strange world that he couldn't understand and didn't have any real expectation to escape from. And it was that sort of resignation that he allowed himself to feel that kind of put him in touch with this dimension, and he believes that's what ultimately allowed him to come back home. Despite those who doubt him, Zhang stands by his version of events. While his time on...
I mean, I don't know about that. So basically, what Zhang thought because he gave in to his situation and accepted his fate, that it allowed him to find his way out. What? Wait, so he allowed himself to be basically taken, and then it's like, oh, here, you can leave. So what was it doing? Was it just like testing you to see how much your survival capability works? You know, like either way, it seems like something might have been testing him. That or skinwalkers.
The trail did not cause him any physical harm. To this day, he is still haunted by it.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of today's episode in the comments. And remember, we have hundreds of videos for you to binge right now. But if you're looking for a recommendation from me of that one video that's worth your time, well, it's this one right here. So give it a watch. All right, until next time, see ya.
Great stuff. Gotta love Mr. Ballin. Let's make myself a little bigger here. All right. And voila. All right. Yeah, so, all right, so thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me here for a Mr. Ballin episode. Mr. Ballin has some pretty good stuff. Like I said, he's legendary when it comes to storytelling. He's one of the best YouTubers, you know, to hit the scene, you know, and he's a veteran. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. So definitely give his channel a like and a follow, subscribe, Mr. Ballin. I might be doing more Mr. Ballin stuff in the future. He covers a lot of neat stories. I would definitely say that. Squeeze Lemon is one of them. I like Nuke's Top 5. He's awesome. There's a lot of YouTubers I follow. It's so many YouTubers that I follow. It's so many. Like, yeah, but I try to pick out the stories that are good to review, easy to review, and you know, start up some talking about that. So that's good. All right, guys. So I will definitely be seeing you next time. I plan on dropping more content eventually. I'm just having to find time to do so. But we're definitely putting out some great content. Also, I have some new ideas. Yes, I have new ideas about editing. So my editing skills have increased. We can thank AI for that. AI has increased everyone's digital talents, I should say, or skills, right? So, yeah, my skills in editing have increased tremendously. So you're going to be seeing some of that probably here in this video once I get into it and start making things happen. But for sure. All right. Thanks for joining me, your guy Dynamics. I will be seeing you guys next time. Boss Reactions.